Hey guys, it's Ben Terry Farm. I want to make a video sharing my experience with breeding meat chickens. I find this to be a very interesting experiment that we've done. And I suppose before I talk about our experience, I would talk about why it is that we would go through the trouble of trying to breed meat chickens, because the price really is not that great. I mean, the price has really gone up in the last year. 2022 was a lot less, and 2021 was even less than that. So the price is, that is an incentive for sure per chick for these Freedom Rangers, depending on how many you buy. This year, I honestly can't remember what it would have been for if you bought 100, but like with shipping and everything, it was going to come out to be well over $2 a chick. And these are actually even really close to us. But these are Freedom Rangers that we saved from last year. And you see like the really brightly colored ones, the rooster. And he is now actually just over a year old. All these hens are over a year old as well. So what we did was we just saved these Freedom Rangers from our broiler chicks last year that we would have slaughtered in June. And these ones were the lucky ones that got to be kept for breeding. And all I did really was, when I would pick the roosters up to put them into the box or the crate to take them to the butcher, I just kind of by hand felt how heavy they were, and this one was exceptionally heavy. So I kept him. Actually, there was one heavier than him, but I let him get away. But he was one of the biggest, and then I kept some of the largest hens because obviously they excelled better than their peers through our Pastured Broiler program, and they're all given the same ability essentially, and these ones just outcompeted the other ones, so that's why we kept these ones. But the reason why that we have done it is because there's a lot of very unethical practices, I would say, that these hatcheries, and it's pretty much universal. In fact, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, that there's not an organic pastured hatchery. Maybe someone who's watching this video could point me in that direction. If it was a reasonable price, close to what we could do it for here on the farm, I would definitely support them over any other hatcheries. And because the hatcheries, I'm not as well learned as I should be on what they're doing, but I do know that they're feeding GMOs. So they're supporting the GMO, they're financing the GMO industry. And that is something that I don't want to support at all, and our farm does not support. So I don't want any of my money going towards the GMO grain industry. On top of that, a lot of these hatcheries, pretty much all of them, offer injections to the chicks before they leave. Obviously, it's optional. If you've ever bought chicks, you can choose that option or not, and it's like a couple cents. I don't know what it's up to now for Merrick's. For one, Merrick's has never been proven to exist scientifically, like all viral infections. But secondly, I just don't like it from a moral perspective, that any company that believes in injecting animals, I don't want to support them. So I don't want to support the hatcheries for those two reasons. And then lastly, the one that I'm least well read on is that the hatcheries and the conditions they're raising the hens is not what we're doing here. Okay, they're generally not pastured. Probably most of them are in a breeding facility that's enclosed, which I don't believe is adequate animal welfare. And sorry, a truck's going by. I hope you can still hear me. Tractor, actually. So we don't want to support that. And the other thing is, and I guess I'm getting kind of long-winded on these reasons, but I think they're very important, is that the writing's on the wall right now with regard to raising chickens. I've made and I've written posts about the new legislation that will be introduced. It's already been introduced in the United Kingdom and other countries, trying to register all birds. Eventually it's going to lead to biosecurity laws that must be enforced by anyone with poultry outside. That means just the mom and pop with just one chicken. And so what that's going to do is it's going to price out anyone like us, a small farmer who doesn't have the funds to implement the biosecurity, because it is going to be extremely expensive. And they're also going to do that to these hatcheries. And what they're going to eventually do, and this is pretty much guaranteed, is that if you're not registered and you're not in the hatchery's database, they will not ship to you. That is going to happen within the next couple of years, probably. It might take a little longer, but it's going to happen. It's going to become reality. And so knowing that, we need to start looking at ways and systems to be more sufficient and not relying on these hatcheries. And it's a good thing. A lot of times when the government gets heavy-handed, it gets people back to being sufficient, and actually it leads to much better practices, especially in our case, and many homesteaders around the country that are following these practices. Pastured and moving, we move these breeding flock every single day, and so they're introduced to fresh pasture. It's kind of early in the spring, but there's plenty of green stuff out here for them to eat, and they're just in excellent condition, excellent shape, so it's a good thing that that people would have to get back in touch with being sufficient with our breeding here. So that's why we're going to do it, and why we have done it. And so I can't tell you yet about how the offspring are going to dress out compared to these ones, because they're still in the incubator. But I can tell you what I've learned so far, and that's that these hens started laying around 24 weeks, which is pretty typical, even for like just laying hens. I mean, some of them will lay before that or after that, but they were very tiny eggs for quite some time, smaller than I would say some of the laying hens, and then eventually within a month or two they got pretty large. So they lay like nice large brown eggs, and I'd say that on average they're getting close to 180 eggs a year, what we've gotten from these. And so that's one of the things people are trying to say, that you should never try to do this, is because they're either meat chickens or they're egg layers. And that is true, because that's not very good compared to a laying breed. 180 eggs is not that much, but it's good enough that we were eating those eggs the entire time. And of course these hens are probably eating a little more feed to make those eggs, but I don't think the cost is massive there to maintain the flock, especially when you're selling or eating the eggs for a good price. And then obviously you have to have separate facilities, so you have to keep these together. I can't just go put them with my layers and then just guess which eggs or who bred who. You got to keep them separate, so that's another issue. You have to have the facility to do that. And then what else I've learned is that I'm trying to think of some other good points that we've kind of come up with. Oh, the fertility. So one thing that I've read, and there's not that much information on it, I think there can be, I just haven't been able to find it, is that you don't want to overfeed these birds. And they talk about even like kind of rationing their feed as they're growing before they're even laying eggs, because it has to do, I suppose, with what they say is that they can get too much excess fat around their reproductive organs, and that decreases the amount of eggs they lay and their ability to be fertile eggs. They also talked about the breeding age of the hens, and that you probably don't want to use these for a second year. You probably want to butcher these here and then raise a second flock from yours, but that could kind of be self-sustaining. And then lastly, and I'm not sure how true this is, but we're going to find out, I'm sure that it is somewhat true, is that they say that basically the more you would breed these and save them yourself, they would eventually regress to a smaller chicken. But they also said that it would take quite some time, many years. So we're going to find out. Like I said, we have some in the hatch or in the incubator, and I will definitely update everybody when they hatch and what they dress at, just to see, is this a truly viable thing? And I think that it's probably going to be, and we need to just continue to do it and learn so that we can get better at it. And so that's basically what I wanted to talk about. And I do think it's extremely important, guys. The ethical reasons alone, I'll show you. This is the one egg I got from them today. Try to get it in there. This is the one egg I got from today. Actually, this isn't a really big one, but it still is, I would consider it a large egg. Some of their eggs are very large. And so that's pretty much it, guys. I don't think there's anything else I really need to touch on about them. I would say this is not a good year-long facility. Once it gets really hot in the summer, I want to move the ones I keep from this year. I want to have into something different, because they just they don't like the heat, and this thing gets a little too warm for them. So I would recommend definitely having something that's like more elevated. I would say like more of a dome-shaped roof for the summer with more air going through. But yeah, I hope that like this will get a lot of you out there considering this and considering who you're supporting, because that's one last point I wanted to make. If anyone's still listening, it seems like it's difficult to get people to listen this long. Is that just because other people in the pastured world or regenerative farming world are doing something doesn't mean that it's ethical or right. I don't want to beat up these people because they've done so much but I also would like to point out things that I think are incorrect, or I say incorrect, just I don't believe is moral. And that is like even a place like Polyface. Now, this is something I heard years ago. I don't know where they source their chicks from now, but I mean, they're going through thousands and thousands and thousands of birds a year. And what I had heard was that basically they were taking leftovers from Tyson. And I think this was actually in one of their videos. Leftover broiler chicks. So basically if like they got too many and couldn't do that many, or the demand wasn't there or whatever, and they hatched out too many, and that'd be a very cheap option to getting chicks. I'm sure that they don't spend much money on that. But think about who you're supporting. You're helping Tyson out. Why would you want to help Tyson out? I would never want to be associated with them in any way. Or whoever they were getting them from. Very, very large poultry operations in the United States. You know, I just would never ever want to be associated with any of their entire infrastructure chain and how they treat animals. That's just not something we will ever do here. So that I guess is one last thing I'll leave you off with, is just thinking about where your dollar is going and who you're supporting, because that's incredibly important. That's how we change the world to a much better and ethical and a world that I think everyone would like to live in. Is when we truly think about downstream, what our actions are affecting downstream. So, all right, well, thanks for watching, guys. I definitely will update you with our findings, and please subscribe if you haven't, and share it and comment. Thank you.